heard here by
or
Joe Biden's
Zion,
announcement 8
in
days
the
earlier that
prophecies that
Haitians
they
that
talk
came to
about
the
coming
southern
back into
Texas border
Zion.
would be allowed in.
And you
Once
look
the
at
footage went
Jehoshaphat
viral,
and all the
Biden's
nations that would be
administration went
gathered, you have to
overdrive
understand these
and
migrations and
ordered
they're
the Border
coming in
Patrol
here
and the
to these
FAA
lands
to
for
put
the
up a
Feast of
geofence
Tabernacles, the
1,000
tents,
plus
the
yards back,
tabernacles, the Feast
so
of
no media
Tabernacles, the
could get
Feast of
footage by
Tents
drones
during the
or
month of
telephoto
September.
lens.
Right? We
But
understand
more
September.
caravans were coming, and they were coming to more places
The
than just the
celestial
Del Rio
time
Ridge.
is
That night,
Virgo
a mile
and Libra.
away, our
Right?
drone
So we look
operators
at
were able
Lady
to capture
Justice,
exclusive footage
right, and all of
of
these
more
things
than
to measure
2,000
the
migrants
harvest, right?
crossing
So this
the
is
Rio
why the
Grande into
Americas, the
arms
mainland
of
of the
Patrol
Americas,
and the National
has
Guard.
been
It was a
essential
completely
why we
smuggling
were able to
process
flourish
by
here in these
taking them to the
mainlands,
Del Rio
because
Mission
during
refugee
the
camp,
fall
then
and winter,
processing them onto
right,
buses
harvest
and
would
released in the
take
United
place.
States with no
And
checking
when
of
these
their
harvests would
IDs
take
or
place
no COVID
during this
tests.
particular time,
Globalism is
the
a
Feast of
corporate takeover
Tabernacles,
of
the
the
Feast of
entire
Tents,
planet,
these
not
things would
just of
take
the
place
nation states,
for
but
people
over
who
our
would make their
individual bodies
pilgrimages
themselves. In the
into
words
the
of
Holy
Joshua,
Land.
it is a scientific
All right, so you got to
dictatorship.
understand
It is a new form
the
of
marketplace
21st
and
century
the providing
war.
of the
And at the
abundance that
heart of
came
their
from
takeover plan
the
is
earth to the
replacement
surrounding
migration.
islands,
It's on the United
right?
Nations'
Whether these
own
are the
website.
Pacific
A
Islands
program,
or
a
these
plan
islands
to
that
collapse the
are
third
in the
world
Caribbean
and then
or in
organize
the even
billions of
into the
desperate
Atlantic.
people to then
So when we
invade
look at
the once
the
powerful,
migrations, the
rich
tents, as you
Western
see
world,
the camping
not to
out,
empower
you got to
the invading
understand
migrants,
the
but
history
to
of the
collapse those
tribes of
economies,
Israel
start of a
has
larger,
been
clever,
this:
and pivot strategy.
wandering,
Joe Biden is simply
looking
a
for
minion
a
carrying out this
land,
operation.
looking
The same
for
operations
a
being carried out in
place.
Europe,
So
as
when
well
you
as both the
understand the
areas of
coming,
Asia.
the
Joe
migrations, the
Biden's
wandering
handlers
of
are
tribes, the
desperate to
lost
hide the
tribes,
truth of what's
this is
happening on
why
America's southern border. Because
we
if
can
his
see
treason is
through
ever
the
exposed,
prophecies,
the American
right,
people will rise up together and put a
and
stop
why we
to
can
it.
use the prophecies
Ever-watchful
to
Texas Senator Ted
foresee
Cruz
and
was
to
on the scene
understand
and
the
gave the
hearts
media
of men
critical
and the
information.
ideals, the ideologies of men who desire to rule as this beast. We understand the beast system, we understand the earth, and the earth metrics measures, which comes back to dealing with scales of measurement, Libras, Lady Liberty, right? The land of the free, home of the free. Understand all of these terminologies, right? Not just in relation to the celestial, but into physical matter, right? And into what we talk about justice, humane justice, just humanity, humanitarianism, what they say. So when you understand what's taking place, the beast system that is trying to get established, guess, you know what I'm saying, guess who's going to be getting checked? Guess, unless there's some type of revolt, which the scriptures talk about, and it talks about these dead bodies laying in the street. You have to understand these end time prophecies in the scriptures and how they are leading up to what we're seeing today in modern times. So we can understand why it's more important than ever that we get connected with the external power that is within us all. So when we understand the traditions, right, and the providing of refugees, the scriptures tells the children of Israel to remember that you were once one in this position, and be not like the children of Esau or Edom, who in our need of trying to find a homeland stood in our way, right? So this is why the histories of the migrations, the use of the constellations and times to find locations, lands, freedom, right? Things of this nature. When you look at these encampments, understand this has been historically what the children of Israel have been through since the historical times of what we see documented in Egypt, which is known as the Red Sea, the crossing of the Red Sea. When you understand the Red Sea and the Gulf and these actual locations, and you see what's taking place modern day, this is the same simulations being revamped. Let me say that again. When we look at this beast system, and what they call 666, the mark of the beast, right? All these in this beast system of controlling that no man can eat, sell, or exchange or do any type of goods except he have this mark in his forehead or in his hand. And when we look at this system, this beast system, this is what we are witnessing being implemented, coming into. So now we're going to see. So we need to be looking at this, observing this, to see the tactics being used.
200 undocumented migrants are being kept from Haiti. It's important to note that the U.S. government doesn't want you to see this.
Because when these disasters start happening, when more disasters start happening, natural disasters start happening, and we have to be on the move, on the migration, understand now identification. And you're going to have to present some form of who you are now, because being in California, you don't get mistaken as a non-American, even though you may not identify with the need of a driver's license or understand how things are playing out. Foresee what is coming. Foresee what is coming. Understand the hue, the complexion of these so-called immigrants that are from the islands of the Americas. You know what I'm saying? Understand, we call ourselves Americans, and we isolate the islands of America. The same people on these islands were the same people on this mainland. Same with the Pacific. So when they found these ancient skulls here in our lands, they were amazed to find the connection with Melanesia, with Asia. This is why they say historically we come from Asia, the Asiatic black man. When you understand these things and you see what's taking place historically and this revamping of the simulations, understand why the identification, why the need to be vaccinated with these new technologies, these new markers, genetic markers, right? Excuse me, DNA markers. I don't know if that excludes it from being genetic, but what I mean is DNA markers. Understand that. Understand where we are approaching and the skills that we're going to need.
On the morning of September 16th, 2021,
traveling with children, right? Moving with children, moving with elderly. You know, we have been privileged here in America because we are on the mainland, right?
Once the footage went viral, Biden's administration went into overdrive and ordered the Border Patrol
that we have never had to be a exile until the terms of the Indian. When you understand the Indian removal acts, and you see what's taking place, understand, right? Some of these people from the Caribbean refer to themselves as Indies. So when you look at the Indian Removal Act and you look at the slave trade, you have to understand this is between these lands, these territories. Foreign nations can now come on our territories and create borders that have never existed. I'm saying it again. Foreigners can come onto our territories and create and tell us there are borders that have never existed. A board game, a simulation is what you can say this beast system is. It's like a board game. Square. Right? So when you look at the 12 and the functionality of that 666 and that entrapment of that 666, and you see our wandering, moving within the earth with nowhere
And the same
to go,
operations being carried out in Europe,
forced to try
as well as
to,
wealthy areas of Asia.
can't even accept our true identity of who we are,
Desperate to hide the
because
truth of what's
foreigners
happening on
have
America's southern
invaded the
border.
territory
Because of
and now
history
have
that was
created
never
borders.
exposed,
So you
the
have
American people will
Puerto
rise
Ricans
up
that think they're
together and
Puerto
put a
Rican.
stop
You
to
have
it.
Dominicans that think they're
Texas
not
Senator Ted
Haitians.
Cruz was on the
Haitians that
scene
don't
and
see
gave
themselves
the
as
media
Dominicans.
critical information.
Jamaicans,
The
all
answer is
these
simple. The Joe Biden
these
and Kamala
terms
Harris are absolute hypocrites. Those
because of these
10,000 people there,
made
you know
up
how many border
borders.
patrol is tested?
So
Zero.
this is the
Not
time
even
that
one. They
we're
don't have the
in,
capacity to
and
do
this is the
that.
time why
And let me tell you
unification is so
something
important. Why
stunning
we
that I
must
learned tonight about why this
unify
happened, 'cause this is
amongst
a man-made
culture,
crisis.
cultural
8 days ago, on
identities
September
that
8th,
help us
under that
sustain
same
ourselves
bridge, there were
without
between 700
these
and 1,000
systematic
people. That was coming
simulations
a day. About
that
1,000,
are
sometimes
entrapping us
1,100, but it would
into
range between 700 to 1,100.
go along with
Then, 8
the
days ago, on
coercion
September 8th,
of
the Biden
our
administration made a
bondage.
political
Peace.
decision. They announced